Ladies and gentlemen, believers and unbelievers, the debate and arguments about the authenticity and the alleged divine origin of the Quran goes on and will continue to do so interminably. Although our series does its best to show, in part after part, based entirely upon the Arabic language of the Quran and Hadith, their own books, recorded history and theology, that the Muhammadan circular logic in defense of their position is untenable, nonetheless, they persist in their arguments of denial, while in the meantime attacking our veracity by using abusive language and by threatening us. So we have decided that we should all, with our God-given or nature-given thinking abilities, scrutinize a short list of the internal and external self-evident contradictions in the Quran and Hadith, and once and for all, put to rest the usual Muhammadan Muslim arguments that are repeated by the ignorant news media and ignoble politicians and the academia, which assert that Islam means peace, when in fact in Arabic language of the Quran, Islam means submission. That Islam belongs to the followers of Muhammad only, when in fact this is one of the greatest linguistic and religious deceptions that has ever been perpetrated upon humanity. Since according to the Quran itself, any human being who believes in the one and only God is automatically a Muslim, and has absolutely nothing to do with either Muhammad or his Quran. That Muhammadan Islam is tolerant, when any reasonable person reading the Quran and observing current events should conclude otherwise. That Allah revealed the Torah to Moses directly, Kalimullah, and yet they claim, without a single proof, that the Torah that we have today had been perverted by the Jews. That Allah revealed the Gospels to Jesus, when we know, based upon the historical record, that this is not the case, since the Gospels were written decades after the death of Jesus. That the Gospels that we have today had also been perverted by the Christians this time, when no follower of Muhammad can ever prove these allegations. That the Quran that we have today is exactly the same, unaltered, as the one that Muhammad transmitted to his followers, when the Muhammadan records themselves, as we have shown, and will continue to show, prove, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that this is a fallacy. That the same God revealed the Bible and the Quran, when in fact this is an impossibility, since the Quran contradicts the Bible in every verse or ayah. That mankind was created from either a clot or a leech, when the Bible tells us that it is descended from Adam, who was created from dust. That Allah said, "Be," to Adam, and he was. Whereas the Bible asserts that the Almighty breathed into the nostrils of Adam and gave him life. That Adam and Eve ate from the tree of life, when in the Bible it is crystal clear that they ate from the tree of knowledge. That it was Satan who deceived Adam and Eve, whereas the Torah has no concept of Satan and mentions the serpent instead. That Adam and Eve were thrown down from the Garden of Eden in heaven to earth, while in the biblical original they were thrown out of it on earth. That the number of days of creation are 8, while the biblical version states that there are only 6. That there were 7 heavens created when only 1 is mentioned in the Bible. That the sun, which is 1,000,000 times bigger than the earth, sets in a puddle of murky water, when humanity has known this to be untrue. That Haman was the prime minister of Pharaoh the Egyptian at the time of Moses, when we recognize him as the prime minister of Xerxes the Persian at the time of Esther 1,000 years earlier. That Pharaoh commanded Haman to build the Tower of Babel in Egypt, when according to the Bible it was built in Babylon in modern-day Iraq. That the Quran asserts that it was Allah himself who chose the Israelites above all other people, and yet the Muhammadans condemned the Jews for calling themselves the chosen people and labeled them racists. That actually it was Allah in the Quran who promised the land to the Israelites, but the Arabs nonetheless claim it to be theirs. That the Quran states that Muhammad was predicted in the Torah, when we have shown that this is a lie. That the Quran states that Muhammad was predicted in the New Testament also, when we have proven that this is a deliberate perversion of language. That Muhammad in his alleged night journey landed in Jerusalem, when in fact the name of Jerusalem is never mentioned in the Quran, while it appears 667 times in the Bible. That Muhammad saw Moses, who had died at least 2,100 years earlier, praying in his grave when resurrection of the dead has not yet occurred. That Allah is merciful and compassionate when in fact He is neither, since He predestines humanity to be either believers and go to paradise or be disbelievers and end up in hell. By depriving humanity of any free will, thereby having no choice in the matter, they are actually innocent of their preordained actions, showing Allah to be immoral and unjust, clearly not merciful or compassionate. That Muhammad was a prophet when they cannot point to a single prophecy anywhere on the Quran. That the hadiths enumerate a great number of unsubstantiated and impossible miracles that were performed by Muhammad, thus contradicting the Quran, which asserts otherwise. That Muhammad had knowledge of all subjects, from astronomy to mathematics, when all the relevant verses of the Quran and hadith show his incredible ignorance and naivety. That Muhammad was the last of the prophets, when we have demonstrated this to be a deliberate misrepresentation and perversion of the meaning of the word khatam, thus disproving the allegation. That Muhammad was sinless when the Arabic of both the Quran and the Hadiths assert otherwise. That Adam, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, etc. knew Allah, when in fact the name Allah does not appear anywhere in the Hebrew Bible or the New Testament, since it was the Arabic name of the God of the pagan Arabs. That it was Ishmael who was being sacrificed by Abraham, while the original story in the Bible asserts repeatedly and unambiguously that it was in fact Isaac. That Abraham and Ishmael built the foundations of the Kaaba in Arabia, when in reality the names Allah, Arab, Arabia, Mecca and Kaaba are never mentioned in the Torah, and neither Abraham nor Ishmael had ever set foot in Arabia. That the angel Gabriel was the same who appeared to Abraham, Moses and Jesus, when anyone who has read the Bible would know this is untrue.